Okay, so I'm actually going to show you. I'm actually going to show you the settings that I have currently, which is my preferred. After testing a bunch of things, and then we'll get into the more of the other stuff. Notably here, I cannot figure out what DLSS version RE9 uses by default. So I have it set to preset L in the NVIDIA app. You're going to need the NVIDIA app for this, so keep that in mind as well. And I have custom resolution scaling to 76. I think 80 looks the best, but it's just a little bit lower FPS than what I would prefer. Try to keep above the 60s here. So in game, again, remember shadow play. Here's a video of what the FPS in this spot look like without the thing. So, without shadow play. In terms of visual quality, this does look better than native. This is a 1440p. I am on a 1080p monitor still, is what it is. My next upgrade, I think, is going to be RAM. But, so, it is what it is, but it still looks significantly better when you use DSR. My internal resolution is set to 1440. But, either way, it does look better than native. Let me show you my settings. I don't really have experience with a benchmark video. Frame rate is on variable. Doesn't need to be. I could probably have it at 120 because it doesn't go above that. So whatever. We'll keep it on variable. Motion blur is on. Doesn't bother me in this game. Texture filter quality is set to high. Mesh quality standard. Screen space reflections on. Subsurface scattering high. Lens distortion on. But not with the chromatic abbreviation. I think I like it best with it just on. Depth of field is on. I don't need depth of field on. But I think it looks good in this game, so I'm going to keep it. Importantly, upscaling technologies DLSS, upscaling mode quality, frame generation is off, low latency on. Everything is set to high except for lens flare, which I have on standard because I like the film look. Shadow quality is high because you go to max, it just VRAM gets way too high. Ambient inclusion is high. Everything is high. Ray tracing is also high on this. So Afro Man would be very proud. And average FPS in this area, especially when not using shadow play, which better than OBS, is relatively, it is consistently above the 70s. Now, if I were to put it up one, let's see, let's go into DLAA. It looks better than DLAA. There's a really good spot to show that, and I will show that. But for now, and these are just what, I don't know if this is really benchmark video. These are just what I think the best settings that I have found personally are. DLS, I can turn DLAA on with without frame generation here, and we get, it's not great at is it forcing resolution scaling? It is, huh? Because I have it set to 4.5 anyway. Because before it was not that bad here. We turn it off. Yeah, without it on, I mean, it still actually kind of doesn't look horrible with no, with just its native stuff, to be honest. It is still within the 60 FPS range, So even though this is a high refresh monitor, but I like to get a little bit above that if I can. This actually looks really good. I kind of am surprised that it's like native looks good, but because DLA wouldn't be too different otherwise. But I do have it set to be on 4.5, so it's using DLA with 4.5, which is actually a little bit taxing. But TA does not look bad here. I'm very surprised by that. So if you just wanted 60 FPS experience, you can do that. If you want slightly more FPS. Yeah, that's gonna... Huh. I actually think that TAA might look a little bit better. But maybe it's just because I have it on... I don't know. I'm just gonna walk away from that. For now. Anyhow, we could put DLA and then frame gen, which is something that I was doing before. Yeah. But also, I should be hitting. Let me show something. Let me try something real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, things are making a little bit more sense now. Now that I have everything back to normal, hold on, we are still on frame gen. So here's DLAA. Normally,
should be around here.
it still is like not a clean 60 FPS.
I need to head to the hotel.
But I mean, it does look good. Okay, but it does kind of drop behind that as well. Quite frequently, so I don't really recommend DLAA, native DLAA here at 1440p. If we go to 1080p, then that's different. So if you just want to play at 1080p, then it's perfectly fine. But to be fair, it is a 1440 GPU, and it does look better even with DSR on 1080p monitor. Probably depending on your monitor. Mine's pretty nice monitor, to be honest. Okay, they put on frame gen with DLA, and we get into the hundreds. And the only thing about this, like the latency is it's fine. It does exist. You put on boost, and it's a lot more noticeable. I mean, it's still there, but it's barely there. In a game like this, you're not going to notice. But now I want to show you. This is the most intensive spot, I believe, in the game. The spot is more intensive than when Leon is running around drop kicking people. It's just most of the game isn't like this. So, but a really good spot I have found to show off how much more something pops is over in this area. Looking at a specific couch. So we're gonna go look at the specific couch. And while I'm here, there is a little bit of ghosting around the gun with frame gen. And that is the only reason that I prefer to have it off if I can. Because that little bit of ghosting, once you notice it, is hard not to notice. Latency wise though, it's fine. But even because you do dip occasionally, there will be an occasional little transversal stutter as well on this. You could probably lower a setting or two, it'd be fine, but I just bought mine. The GPUs are really expensive right now. I got this at $624. After tax, it was $670. So, you know. And there's a little bit of ghosting. If the ghosting doesn't bother you though, realistically, if you want to keep a DLA, you can. I want to show you some really cool stuff. The best spot to show that is, let's get out of, yeah, actually stay in DLAA. And the spot too, by the way, with DLAA, without frame generation. Let's see, 70, 73, 74. But it will occasionally dip below a comfort level. In some more like demanding little areas. For the most part, it is fine. It's actually running a little bit better than it was before. What's it look like native? Let's just look at that real quick. Oh, my bad. Hold on. TA, am I tripping or does TA look good in this game? And the FPS are decent too. This had, I'll be honest, well, those little stutters, I don't like that. But to be honest, this is perfectly viable. I do like this, but still, I don't think I would prefer that because of the stutters are a little bit more noticeable here when it does that, little transversal stutters. I've noticed while doing all of this that there's a lot of similarities between performance and fine-tuning settings. But I do think DLAA, I'll be honest, I think TAA looks better than DLAA in this game, and that's you a tiny little bit more performance. So this is probably something to consider as well. But this little spot right over here has been the best little showcase, is this bench. So here is this, bench, here's this couch, DLAA, because no matter what, all these settings that I'm kind of going for are around the 70 to 80 FPS range. That's kind of my goal here on this, is get 70 to 80. Because you could get better by just having quality settings. Otherwise, let's see, put on DLSS quality, and your FPS goes pretty high. That's 100 plus FPS experience, and it looks great. It looks slightly worse than native. Slightly worse than DLAA. But if you're not looking for it, you're not going to notice it, real talk. But I am looking for it, so I am noticing it, and so now I kind of can't unnotice it. But this is perfectly fine. But what we are trying to do here is get the most quality out of the most performance, like the best quality performance balance for this game. So what we are going to do, we could also do that if you really wanted to, but I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. First of all, I have 144 hertz monitors, a little bit too much FPS, looks a little bit strange. But to each their own. You test all that out yourself, see if you want that, but I don't. If I don't have to use frame generation, I probably won't, just because of that little bit of ghosting that you can see on the gun here. Now, if I didn't notice that before, I was playing with DLSS or DLAA with frame gen, because especially with reflex boost on, like the latency is like not really noticeable and it looks good, but now that I noticed the ghosting on the gun, even though like in the middle of the game you're not going to pay attention to that, when I'm not in the middle of the game I'm going to look at it and I'm going to be a little bit annoyed. It doesn't actually matter, like it's totally fine. Just personal preferences. You get higher FPS by that, have a smoother experience, and your trade-off is basically just that. That is the main trade-off, is just the ghosting on the gun. But for the sake of fine-tuning things, because this is a slower paced game at the end of the day, even though it does have first-person aspect to it, it's still relatively slow, so it doesn't really matter. I even think that frame gen is perfectly viable with reflex on in Souls games. To be completely honest with you, I think it's totally fine. It mostly comes down to usually latency isn't too bad as long as you want to have like a 60 FPS experience before you use that. It kind of depends on the game, though. I will say that in a couple of games I have played on my 360 Ti, namely Last of Us Part 2, I used DLSS. I used frame generation via FSR, and I did the same thing as well inside of the DLC sections of Remnant 2. And in both those experiences, it was sub 60s, but it was not noticeable. It was completely fine. The latency, actually, I would say the latency was more preferable for me personally in Remnant 2, because Remnant 2 is just so much faster than other Souls style games that it felt more normal to me to have that little bit of latency. So didn't bother me then. I now have a better GPU anyways, but still. Okay. So pay attention to the thing in particular. It just stands out so much more than a lot of other things, as well as the umbrellas. And we will go back to there at a couple of varying settings. But this is at, you can turn frame gen off. Whoa, the hell just happened? I don't want the challenge. No, turn that off. Or okay, never mind. That's just for okay. All right. This is a DLAA, so let's turn on its standard out of the box. Oh, this is quality. This is a standard out of the box look with DLSS quality before you do any customized adjustments. Which not noticing the difference says a lot about how good it actually looks. And here's DLAA. It just looks slightly better. But it is worse performance. And if you have a 60 hertz monitor or whatever, like, it's probably fine, to be completely honest. You'll dip into the 50s on occasion, but not most of the time. So, and it does look good. TAA. Let's get a look at her, and let's get a look at that. I want to throw on TAA now, because that originally was not a part of my plan for this video. And I genuinely think TAAA, and too many A's, but TAA looks better in this game in particular and has higher performance. I genuinely think TAAA looks good in this game compared to DLAA. That's actually kind of surprising. This looks good. This might be close to the preferable way to do this. I might change my mind in best settings, but we're gonna look because I want to show you a couple of things. I mean, this looks good. It's like this game in particular. What's our transversal stutter look like here? We're saying into the 70s in this area, which is nice. A little sharp on him, but it still looks like, in terms of environment and everything, it looks really good. I do think either way that it looks a little bit better than DLAA, which is interesting, and I was not expecting that. Wow, okay, it's kind of crazy. But now let's go to what I'm going to do is I am going to turn on 80 for an NVIDIA a custom resolution. I'll show you. So now we are going to turn on we're going to DLSS override preset L DLS 4.5, and then also its default for quality is 67%. DLA, it just doesn't look better. Like, you gotta have a good balance. It just doesn't look better. There's some weird stuff going on here. I'm very surprised by. And what I have settled with is 77, but if you go to 80 or 76 actually, but when you go to 80% custom scale, which you still get better experience from, it looks really good. So let's show you that. And this actually looks a tiny bit better than DLSS, both maybe TAA. We're gonna check that out in a second. Your FPS though, it is at a 70%, 70 to 80, with occasional dips into 69. I have not seen it go below 69 though, which is funny. And it also looks really good. I'm wondering if it's better than TAA or not. But in particular, that couch looks really good. I'm thrown off by TAA, which I can't even say it with the proper amount of A's. But if we turn on DLAA now with these settings, it actually does look really good, but now we're below 60 FPS, so we're kind of like defeating the purpose of all of that. But this would probably be what I would do if it was a different GPU. But it's not a different GPU. And, well, I could turn on frame gen. I'm in the 50s. It's not the best baseline for frame gen. But you could do that. I mean, that ghosting on the gun does exist. But if you could get over that, I mean, this is gorgeous. Let's turn on a reflex with boost. To clean up the latency, and it does clean up pretty well. And this looks really good. Although we do have to mind the stutters that you will get because the baseline was not amazing. So I mean, I don't like that. We are kind of pushing this to its absolute limits, though, to be fair. Right. So, and that's with FrameJet. But ultimately, DLSS. Let's look. We want to look at. Okay. TAA. Occasionally, it's just a little bit too sharp on certain things for me personally. But otherwise, and that was a pretty bad little stutter there. It just seems to be doing that right now. No matter what. Probably because I'm recording, to be honest with you. That probably has. This is recording 1440p, so it's kind of a lot. I think that's what's starting to happen here. Otherwise, now let's show you my preferred, which I have had the best luck with. Remember, a little bit of FPS is being taken by it being a recording, but it's not a huge amount. It's probably around like 5, maybe 6 FPS, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more in certain situations, which does matter. So keep that in mind. And the stutter that we're having here, I'm pretty sure is because I am recording, because it was not doing that before, and it is getting worse as the recording continues. So we could put the blame on that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you my preferred, which is pretty much the same setting, except that it is 76 instead of 87, or instead of 80, with DLSS quality and no frame generation. This is 80, which looks good. Looks good. But let's scooch to where I had found my brain is stopping. So let's skip it to the little next bits. I did verify, by the way, the stutters that I was getting were indeed because of the recording, and the amount of FPS loss in recording is actually pretty minimal, but it is there, probably about 3% on average. For example, this was at like 91 to 93ish, give or take. But this is with DLAA at 70% or 76%, which is 9% higher than its default resolution, and this is also with DLSS 4.5 L. Also, both those things are being utilized through the NVIDIA app, so you do need the NVIDIA app to reach that. And our FPS here is definitely a little bit better. And you can see, I mean, honestly, I feel like this looks better than TAA. I'm so confused. There's so many things to consider. It is a little bit softer than TAA, but it is still better than native DLAA by a little bit, a little tiny little bit better. It's just a little bit better, and the performance is better. You know what I mean? I mean, she looks maybe a little bit better in some aspects, but not really. If you look at the rest of the environment just looks better. To be fair, also that is 4.5 DLAA, which is different than 4.0 DLAA, which I think they use. I don't really know. It is so confusing, but they do not use preset L. I believe that it uses DLSS 4 out of the box. I think that it looks. I cannot tell. Yeah, it looks better. It just looks a tiny little bit better than that, especially like looking at the couch like that, and versus TLAA. We're gonna go into the little raindrop area in a second, the beginning area. Versus TAA. How's TAA look? TAA now looks a little bit too sharp. It doesn't look as balanced. The FPS is a little bit worse. So this, I believe, is my preferred bit because you get the best FPS to quality ratio, and you don't have to use frame gen, but you can. If you want to use frame gen, you go for it. I like frame gen, and I have found it very useful in a lot of games. But what's TAA look with frame gen? Yeah, it's just they're having a time. Actually, I mean, there's so many aspects to this, which is why this is such a long video. Because when you're actually fine-tuning it and finding the best settings and everything, I really think that there's a lot more than meets the eye, especially in this game, compared to some other games where TAA looks like ass. It does not look like ass here. And the ghosting on the gun, frame gen on with at that, I mean, it looks so good. Ghosting on the gun, I mean, it's not. You have to really be paying attention. You have to really be paying attention, notice it, and it's actually kind of looking a little bit better than it did before, which confuses me. I think it's because I'm not looking for the specific little parts that bothered me. And now that I'm actually playing the game at this point, you just don't notice it as much. I am recording, right? Yes, okay. I am. Yeah, no, I you know, you could probably get away with frame gen like this, and this still looks better than a lot of other aspects. and you can't notice the latency. You only notice it right away, but when you have like boost on, which I think I have on, oh, I do not. Yeah, I mean, it's not, you can't notice the latency at all at that point, be honest. You just can't. There's a little bit of ghosting, and you only notice it on the gun. But let's head off to the other area and show it off there.
It should be around here.
Give me a break.
This is with frame gen on, and it's important to note here because you don't notice that frame gen is on when it's not the gun. You don't notice the ghosting. I do have motion blur on. Maybe if I took motion blur off, but I'm gonna leave motion blur on. But it does look. Here, I'll turn motion blur off real quick, just for you. I mean, if you're using frame gen, maybe I would have motion blur off. But I do think that this is the best balance. Like if you put it up to 80, it does look a tiny little bit better in some scenarios. But ultimately, if you want like decent performance with max settings and ray tracing, then that's the way to go. I do not have path tracing on. I'll do that last, just for the heck of it, just for you. But you know it's gonna be bad. But before I do that, just to see what the ghosting looks like without motion blur on. Now it is worth noting that I do have a G-Sync monitor, but I don't think that matters in terms of motion blur because I'm not using the frame thing. All right, so yeah, I mean it's about the same. It might actually be a little bit harder to notice now without. I mean, it's definitely there. You can see like a little bit of a line around the gun. And I just noticed the craziest thing is that if I change my eyes, I've never looked at this before, but I have motion blur off. And if I change my eyes to pay attention to the background moving, it doesn't show like when you're looking at the gun and you move, I want you all to try this. When you're looking at the gun and you move left and right, the background kind of blurs, right? Even without motion blur, just because of how your eyes. But if you look at the background and you kind of like focus your eyes in the right way, where you kind of like move them at the appropriate amount, like kind of like look at this spot right here where the reticle is right now, and I'm paying attention to that spot only while I move left and right. Like just keep your eyes focused on that spot as best you can. You might need to move them a little bit to keep them doing that, and the background is no longer. That's so cool. What the hell, dude? I mean, this is perfectly fine. You want to take off motion blur. I'm using a controller. Without a controller, it is what it is, and the latency is there, but you're not gonna notice it. Actually, with reflex boost on, I don't think there is latency. So you could do that. That is an option with frame gen, as like mixed with DLS quality like that. We could also try doing frame gen DLAA. But it's got other issues. The ghosting is actually a little bit more worse here too, to be completely honest. And then you get those stutters. I am recording, and that is part of why the stutters are so bad. But like, so you're not gonna stutter like that if you're not recording. I promise. But still, I think my preferred experience here is quality without frame gen at the like 80 ish with a little bit of give and take, a little bit of fluctuation. I think that this is my preferred experience, just because you don't have the ghosting. But the ghosting is pretty minimal, man. I'm only nitpicking right now because I'm looking at it. Otherwise, screw it. Throw frame gen on. We got it for a reason, right? Might as well use it. It'll get better over time as it has. I mean, adaptive frame gen exists. I don't know how to put. I don't think I could put adaptive frame gen into this game. But can you force adaptive? I don't know. But now what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna do some dumb shit, and we are going to turn on. I'm gonna turn on ray reconstruction, and I think I got the way to turn that on. I think I have to turn on ray tracing to above high. We're learning together. Yeah. We're gonna turn on path tracing. Oh, now we got path tracing on, and we're getting 47 FPS. And I believe we are getting 47 FPS. What is our? We don't have frame gen on, so let's turn frame gen on. You get 90 FPS. Latency's not horrible. It's not horrible. That's kind of screwy. Like, you can't deny that it looks good. I don't think it looks good enough to warrant the FPS drop. In a game like this, I do think that you could kind of get away with it. If we're looking at this area specifically, I mean, the walls look better and everything, but overall, I just don't think that it really stands out amongst the crowd. It's just kind of like if we turn Grace on. Whoa, I didn't mean that in that way. If we allow Grace to be seen, now that's probably where we're gonna see most of our and that looks a little bit better. Path tracing's nice, but I just don't think it's nice enough, you know? I mean, it looks really good there on the shadows. But like the reflections here still look like ass. The texture on that still looks like ass. Looks real good on the stairs. Good on the hair or whatever, but you know, like realistically, you could probably get away with this too if you want to. It doesn't feel bad. Let me go shoot a guy real quick. Some stutter in there. It's up to you. There's definitely some noticeable latency there because, like, at this point, I mean, it looks really good, doesn't it? Like, compared to without it. But there's like when I was shooting that gun, there's some very noticeable latency, but we're getting like 45 FPS otherwise. Indoors, by the way. We're gonna go outside in a second. And that's with DLSS quality as well. But if I can't just turn path tracing off. I forgot about that. You have to go like all the way to the outside. So let's do that. Let's go, or you have to start the whole game over or whatever. But let's just go up to the outside real quick. Show path tracing off. It looks phenomenal out here.
It should be around here.
Yeah, I know that.
But there's some artifacting that's like way more noticeable now that isn't really present otherwise.
Really talking to him? And that was on the table.
Like it's for all things considered, I think it's forgivable. It's just kind of whether or not that added bit of latency is for you. You could alternatively lower down some settings probably and make it work. But you don't need it. I do want to go into the correct position here though. And I mean, you gotta think like our FPS otherwise is not necessarily good. So there's stutters, and on the inside there's a latency with your actually shooting of the gun that feels bad. because it's just such a low FPS otherwise. Like, we're probably 30 FPS out here right now. And I mean, look, it looks so good. It looks really good. It's just not ready yet. It's still such a new thing. But if you wanted to just like go through like this little bit or whatever, or if you could deal with stutters and you could deal with that added latency, then you go for it. I don't think that I'm gonna do that, even though this is like phenomenal to look at. But just for the sake of it, I'm gonna go up to 1080p now. See what that's like with path tracing. If you know what, honestly, it's not that bad. It's a lot more FPS. So if you're rocking 1080p and you don't want a DSR up to 1440p, even though it still just looks a lot better, then I think you can get away with path tracing with frame generation and reflex boost on, because it's not gonna be so bad. Otherwise, I just want to see two more things. I want to see what this looks like here without frame gen. I mean, 60 FPS, 63 FPS at 1080p with path tracing, max settings.
I need to head to the hotel.
The textures are doing some weird things. I'll be honest, you still get dips into the 40s, so it's probably because I'm recording. Because I was doing some weird stuff before, so that adds to it. Considering it's just kind of sporadic. But, I mean, yeah, it's up to you. The textures look a little bit weird. The thing about path tracing is, while it does make things look a lot more realistic, there's a certain trade-off of making certain things like way too soft.
Yes, I will.
In lights in particular, there's a little bit too soft that I don't like. But you could definitely, and this is the most demanding spot, so let's go into here. This is 1080p. 1080p, no frame gen. Around the insides, we're looking at 83 FPS. It looks really good. I don't think it looks as good as 1440. It depends on your monitor, I think. My monitor rocks DSR really well. It's the settings that I have on it are really good. It's got like a really good anti-aliasing built into it. It's a really nice monitor, and it is a 1080p monitor, and because it's nice is the reason I haven't moved up. I will to 1440p, but I do love this monitor. I mean, but 1080p is perfectly fine. Is perfectly acceptable. I am not somebody who is against 1080p. I've been using 1080p all the way up until a couple of days ago, and occasionally would maybe have DSR'd up, but very, very rarely. My GPU just couldn't handle it. 360 Ti is a beautiful GPU, and I fucking love that thing. But this is without frame gen, so let's throw on frame gen real quick. I don't think we even need to be honest. We will in a second, though. I just want to get a good look at what this guy looks like. 1080p. The FPS is good. Like, this is perfectly fine. It does look really good. But we are at 1080p, and there is a trade-off. Like if we go to back to 1440, we're gonna have to turn frame gen on. Well, if we don't, then we're getting 45 FPS. Which is I don't know if it's a 52 or 42, but whatever. Oh, that wasn't. YouTube loved that. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the latency is there, as it should be. We got path tracing on. We have a whole lot going on, but if you really want, if you could deal with that an occasional little bit of a stutter that you're inevitably gonna get, you can rock this game with quality DLSS at 76%, DLSS 4.5, both those things being turned on via the app, pat tracing on, with frame generation and reflex boost to boost reflex on and plus boost, and a little bit of a stutter here and there, but I guess part of that right now is definitely because of there's definitely a noticeable latency. I don't have the latency graph up. I'm not sure how to get that, so I don't really do benchmarking. What is that noise? Now we gotta... It's not great. The latency is not great, but if you could look past that, then you can for sure. Like, this is a playable experience. Anyways, perfectly fine. Like, I've already forgot about the ghosting, so you know, just forget about the ghosting. It doesn't matter. Those are all your options here for 5070. In this game, it's not very CPU bound, so CPU isn't really playing too much of a role here, to be completely honest with you. The game does run hot, so there is that to consider, but especially like with all this stuff going on, it does kind of pop up to the 84 degrees, which is the thermal throttling point for my GPU, but it is what it is. And I am recording too, and that does add extra little bits of stuff. So there you go. It's up to you. Pat tracing is doable, and it does look really good. But you just have to decide whether or not that added bit of latency is worth it for you. I think I'm just gonna keep on ray tracing, for me personally. I think that's just where I'm gonna keep it. Pat tracing looks good, but the little bit of added latency isn't for me personally. But I could definitely see like most people probably being fine with it. It's so minimal. The latency is so minimal here. For a game like this, it doesn't really matter all that much. Honestly, you know my preference. I know you know how all of this runs at all these different settings with custom settings and everything. You could probably even get a little bit better experience if you were to bring it down to regular GLSS 4, to be completely honest with you. It'll look a little bit worse, but you can still have pat tracing and probably get a little bit less latency. Go ahead and test those things for yourself, see how it works for you. For me personally, I'm kind of undecided, but I probably will just rock ray tracing instead of pat tracing and keep off that extra latency, even though this is genuinely pretty damn fine. Like, I don't really have any issues with this at all. There's just a little bit, and the latency, by the way, is totally not an issue. I mean, it's there, it is definitely there, but when you're moving around and doing things in this game, you just don't really notice it. You only notice it when you fire the weapon, and not all of the time. Like there, I didn't really notice it. So, I mean, I'll be honest with you, pat tracing I think is actually a perfectly viable option here at these settings. It keeps everything a little bit of integrity to everything, kind of probably the best balance I could get. And you could, of course, you can mess around, you can go to performance or whatever, like, why not, right? Let's see what performance looks like. Or balance, let's see what DLSS balance is like here. The latency is, I mean, you get used to it real quick is the thing. I don't know if I'm gonna play the game like this. Like, I feel like I could. I might give it a try. See how it goes. But, you know, we got frame generation over 45 FPS. It just so happens that this game in particular, it just doesn't really matter that much. And in terms of like artifacting, there's not really anything that I'm noticing. So there you go. Those are all your options. And yeah, your preference is gonna end up being your preference. I can't tell you what you should do. There's trade-offs. There's give and take no matter what you do. I'm probably gonna play on this a little bit at these settings a little bit, and see how I like it. See if I can deal with the added see how bad like things get or whatever. But at the end of the day, I think other than like this in terms of looks to performance ratio with minimal sacrifices, I think patch tracing off with DLSS quality, resolution scale customized to 76 ish, give or take, whatever your personal preference is. I got 76. It says 77. I just went to 76. Just felt right. I don't know. And it does look better than native. TA does look pretty decent too. And in all of these settings, you get roughly within the 70 to 80, 90 range regardless. And you could also add frame generation, which for the most part in all settings other than this, latency is like damn near not something you're even going to think about. It's just that little bit of ghosting at the gun that I personally feel a little bit weird about. Otherwise, you are completely good to go, and you're probably not going to have any qualms even here. I mean, and this is performance too, which I didn't even recognize for a second that we're still using DLSS balance on performance. The DLSS is gotten to a point where like it just looks, and video games have gotten to a point where everything just looks and works kind of good no matter what, so long as you could have like some things on a little bit higher settings if you can. But either way, I mean, you can't really complain, can you? Patch tracing 88 FPS, and it does feel smooth. It's just that little bit of added latency it's there, but it's better than all console generations up until most recently. Does that make sense? Like, things are just advancing so much, but if we were to go back like 10 years and we were doing this, we would be very happy. We would not be complaining. We would be like, you know what, that little bit of latency is perfectly fine. If you were to go back 20 years, you would think that you're in a different world entirely. So it's all perspective. Find which perspective works best for your enjoyment of the game. There you go. I had to edit all of this.